Hey y'all, welcome back. We're going to start off with our first demo of the semester. Um, if you haven't yet already, please go download that zip folder. We got several files in that. We're not going to have a ton of demos in this class, but unfortunately this first one's going to be pretty heavy. We got a lot of stuff to cover. It's going to be kind of 3 demos in one. We're going to make a logo today. We're going to go take that logo and populate it into a bunch of stationery. And then we're going to take that stationery, that different type of print matter, business cards and whatnot, and we're going to put that into a digital mockup. I'm going to show a couple different ways of making a digital mockup. So let's go get ready to take a bunch of notes because we're going to be talking about some stuff that's going to show up on tests, and that's going to be pretty important. And if you haven't yet, please go and open up the fake mouse logo. So I made this stupid logo really quick a couple semesters back. I thought I'd bring it back for today's logo just because Mickey Mouse became public domain. So I just thought about what if I don't know, like a skateboarding clothing company made this kind of cringy logo. That's what I was kind of thinking. Kind of looks rough, but that's what we're going to use today. We're working in Illustrator. We're taking notes. So let's go for it. So the first thing we need to do if we're working on a logo, if we make a file, we need to make it be CMYK, or if we're working collaboratively, we need to double check and make sure that it's in CMYK. So I'm going to go select everything. I'm going to go to Edit, Colors, Convert to CMYK, just to be safe. You don't want to make a logo in RGB, because if your client goes and prints that RGB logo out, it's going to be super muddy. So if you start off in CMYK, it's good for printing. It can always be converted to RGB if it needs to go on the web. But if you start off in RGB, you might run into some major issues with your client. Okay, so we got in CMYK. So I kind of just walked through what we got here. We have basically for our mouse logo a bunch of circles. I'm going to go to outline mode, which is Command Y. So you can see the different paths there. So I got a bunch of circles. They're just kind of overlapping, really kind of simple. Just kind of use the circles, use some align tools, knocked it out in a few minutes. So we have a bunch of circles. They're not connected. So if you sent this to a client, they click on the logo, they're only going to be clicking on one ear. They're going to get kind of annoyed with that. So we're going to have to combine some stuff today and format it so it could work for a client. The type here, I have it in outline. You need to make sure that we, always have our type in outline before we go send it off to a client, because if they don't have that typeface, they won't be able to use it. And I'm working with one of these newer typefaces. That's what's it called? It's a variable font. It's called DSA. It is on Adobe Fonts. You don't have to go get it. That's why I created outlines, just so you could see what it looked like. Right now, I'm just going to edit it, but it's a variable font. These are kind of new. They haven't been around too terribly long. And they become quite popular in the last couple of years or so. So these variable fonts, instead of having differences in weight that are light, bold, italics, they're kind of funkier. This one has yeah and O. I can switch between those, but it also has a button over here for the variable font. And what a variable font is basically has a slider, and you can adjust these sliders, and it's going to change that typeface around. So like a lot of interactive websites have these variable fonts. You see them a lot. Some of these variable fonts do more than just change the weight. They might change the angle. They can get pretty wild. Some of them look good. Some of them look trash. But I thought I'd just share that today. I don't know how I feel about the fake mouse, but we're rolling with that. We're using it. It's kind of funny. It's supposed to be a bad skateboarding clothing company anyways. Let's go. Okay, so what we need to do next is we need to go and combine this up because it's just a bunch of shapes. So the easiest way about doing that is probably going and having our Pathfinder out and using that to combine shapes. We could go use our shape builder. See if I can make a new layer and work on that. Nope, it's not letting me right now. Either way, it doesn't matter. You could use the shape builder. I'm not going to use it right now. I like the Pathfinder. It's a lot easier. That Pathfinder could be down here in your bottom right in properties. If you don't see it there, go to Windows, Pathfinder, and that little flyout menu would pop up. You probably used this before, but we'll just kind of go over it just to make sure everybody's on the same page. I like this one a lot better than the shape builder, but this is what I was kind of, trained on when I was learning this stuff. So I'm going to go click the ears. I'm going to go click that big circle, and I'm going to combine them together by hitting that first Unite Pathfinder button. So I clicked the Unite. That's right under the shape mode. There's the divide. Sorry if that kind of confused you. You can always edit undo, but go hit the Unite. It's that first one under the shape mode. So after we go connect them all together, let's go do the same thing for all the white circles. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. So I'm holding down Shift. I'm clicking on all those teeth, clicking on all those bigger white circles, and then I'm clicking the Unite. Don't click the divide. I did that, and then that popped up over top my nose there, which is pretty easy to fix. I could right click, go to Arrange, and send backward. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the hotkey Command bracket, left bracket sends back, right bracket sends forward. And I use those a lot just because I feel like it's quicker than doing right click or going down through those drop downs and getting to there. Okay, so we got that getting combined a little bit more. Let's go and let's continue on. Let's start to figure out how this text is going to interact with our logo here. The text I made almost the size that it needs to be, but we might have to do some slight adjustments. So let's first go and grab our mouse head, and I'm going to go and grab our guides and drag them down just to the edges of the bounding box of that mouse. So we're going to make guides go all the way around. And then once we got that going, we're going to situate our type. We could just align these, but this will make more sense here in a second. So we got our type here. I could arbitrarily place the type below our logo, I could just do it on fill, but what I'm going to do is to figure out that spacing between the type and our mouse kind of graphic here is I'm going to go and I'm going to break out a section of the type and use that as a unit of measurement. So I'm going to go grab my circle, my rectangle tool, and I'm going to go trace over the E, and I'm going to snag half that E. So think about maybe what would be the X height for this typeface. Yeah, and I'm going to use that to figure out the spacing between the mouse and the type. So that was pretty close. I'm going to bring it up just a little bit. There we go. So that's looking pretty good. Yeah, I think that's enough space, not too tight. And then what we're going to do next is we're going to make another guide at the bottom of our type. And then we're going to start to figure out that clear space. And we're going to be taking a letter, breaking that out, kind of like how we did with half that E. And we're going to use that to go figure out the space around this logo. That clear space is that amount of space that we want to have, that we want to tell a client, another designer, this is the amount of breathing room that we need around a logo where other content, text, other graphics can't enter in. So it has a little bit of breathing room so it can stand out. So I'm going to go use this F. It's pretty big and dominant. I'm going to hold down Shift, and I'm going to do actually the whole height of that F is a nice box. Then I'm going to take that. I'm going to go around the edges. This is going to be kind of up to you what you use. I've made this mouse logo before. You know, I kind of cooking showed this for us. So I figured the F was probably the best. And then I'm going to go take that box just like we did before with the E. I'm going to go around the outside now and make a little border. That's going to be our clear space. So I go to one corner. I usually do the opposite corner so I don't have to go all the way around. And there we go. We got our clear space. Okay, folks. So we got our clear space. We got our text set up. We're getting closer. We're almost there. We're going to make some variations too, just so our client could have a little bit of a variety. Maybe they could pick out one, or maybe you want to try some different variations of this logo out in some of our stationery design. So what we're going to do first, though, is we're going to go take our artboard. So go to the artboard tool, and we're going to drag it down just to the edge of that clear space. So the size of our artboard is going to be the clear space, that breathing room around the logo. So I did that, hit enter. I'm going to say this is a mouse logo clean. And I label that first artboard that, because what we're going to do is we're actually going to make two variations of this. It's going to be really quick to do this. So we've made our first variation. And what I'm going to do before I do anything else is I'm going to go and let's just get rid of the guides. They're going to become an issue when we start to go combine some more stuff down the road. So boom, got rid of the guides. We don't need those anymore. We figured out what our clear space is. So what we're going to do is we're going to go and make another artboard. So we got two artboards going on here. I'm going to go and select all my content in that first artboard. I'm actually going to cut it, right? So instead of copy it over, I'm going to actually just cut it. And I'm going to right click again and go to paste all artboards. So it's going to go paste it in the same spot as before in all the artboards. So if you wanted to make several of these and you wanted them to go and have subtle little variations, different colors, cut it, paste on all artboards, and you're good to go. If you don't cut it, if you just copy it, it's going to paste the same logo over top of the previous logo, which could have issues when you're trying to format this file. So let's go to artboard 1 still. And then I'm going to go and drag over everything again one more time. And I'm going to combine everything so it's all together. So I'm going to go to Object, like we did before, Compound Path, Make, which the hotkey for that is Command 8 if you got a Mac. So let's go over here. We're going to make another version of this mouse. So we got the clean version. We're going to make a roughed up version, I think. I'm going to go grab the line segment tool. I'm going to make a couple lines. Make like an X, because I'm going to put an X over one of his eyes, I think. So I'm making the X. I'm going to go even those out. My align tools and zoom in on this X. So this X is just two paths, right? I won't be able to use any of our shape modes or pathfinder tools on it because it is just these two paths. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to select this and I'm going to go Object, Expand. It's going to go ask me how I want to expand it, but I'm going to have it be the fill and the stroke. Hit OK. And now it's gone and converted it over where it's no longer just two paths. Now it's two shapes. So I got two different rectangle shapes, and I'm going to go unite those together. Now I got a big united X. I'm going to switch that to white. And maybe I'm going to go over here and put it on top of this left eye. to your design. You could do both. I'm going to actually use the guides just to kind of help center this up a little bit for me. There we go. Looking good. I'm going to take my I and my X, and I'm going to go use that minus front to go chop into that I. So if I go to outlines, it's looking like something like that. Okay. So next up, I'm going to give it, you can really do what you want with this, but I'm going to go grab the lasso tool, and I'm going to take this kind of diamond shape from the A. So I'm going to go draw around that, copy it, paste it. So I'm going to kind of bring it out of that type. And I'm going to use this as a little accent. This could be, I guess, like an earring or something, or like a little flick in the eye, but I'm going to go make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to make it look like it's a nick out of this mouse's ear. Cool. So this time I'm going to go select the little white diamond shape. I'm going to select the big ear, and I'm going to use the minus front to chop that out. And then I'm going to need to go send that back. So send that back. So boom, we got that there. Got a few little accents. Make it your own. I'm going to go, after I do all that, select everything, Command 8 to make it be one big compound path. So we have two artboards. One is the mouse clean. The other one I'm titling mouse logo rough. They're both kind of looking rough, but we got these two variations. If we wanted to, we could change the colors. We could continue to have additional variations and show that to a client, but we have these two here. Okay, so make sure to save an Illustrator file for yourself so you can continue to edit this if you needed to as the designer. But if you're going to send stuff off to the client, let's talk about saving. So there's a lot of different ways we can save for Illustrator, right? We've done the save as, and there's different options right there, right? We could save it as an Illustrator file. The SVG is a vector file. The EPS is another kind of vector graphics file. They're kind of similar. So sometimes clients will need those. More often they'll need the SVG. And then we have the PDF. We could also go, if you needed a client, or if a client needed you to go, you could export as, and you could export PNGs, JPEGs, TIFFs, all that kind of stuff from there. So let's just go back to the normal exporter. I'm just going to do this just to show you what's going to look like if we save an SVG file. So I'm going to go save it as an SVG file. I'm going to go save this to just the desktop just to kind of show you. I'm going to use artboards. So if I did SVG before and I didn't specify, I would just do one big file for everything. So if I go click range, I can do the first artboard, or I could do the second artboard. So when I click save here, the SVG is going to have some settings. Usually I stick with SVG 1.1. Life's good. You could tell it to create outlines. So the type would be converted to outlines, but I've already done that because I'm always working in that way, so it's easy to work with clients. There's some other things you can go and fine tune. Some of it's getting into the weeds. Sometimes people say if you have like a document and there's like a lot of textures and stuff, you could link those versus embedding those. We don't have anything that crazy going on today. There's more options down there. You could go save it as code. So you could take that code and go plug it into a website. They're pretty versatile. It's really just what it's saving is a file that is a bunch of data about the points and paths that are on that image. Okay, so you can go and hit OK and it will save. But let's say we have 30 files that we need to export at one time. We want to export these in different ways. That would take us a lot of time to do that. So let's go File, Export, Export for Screens. So this is kind of like a batch exporter. As you can see, I got both my artboards up here. I could select one, I could select both. It's going to be exporting these as different files. Okay, so each artboard would be exported as its own individual file. It's really quick and easy to work this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, I have range, I got both of those set up. That doesn't really matter too much for this way, but I'm going to have this go export back into my Demo photo. I could get really into the weeds and show you how to make it label folders in certain ways, but we'll hold off on that right now. But if we go down to formats here, we can see that you might have SVG selected. So I'm going to have an SVG. I'm going to click Add Scale, and it's when I export a PNG. One thing is the PNG exporting through here can look a little crunchy. It depends on how you go and fine tune it. I'd recommend going through export as. You can fine tune PNGs a little bit better, but I'm going to go click on PDF. I could go export out some JPEGs if I wanted to, but I just want to have right now the SVG, the PDF. I'm going to click export. So now in that demo folder, I got a folder that has my SVGs in it. I got a folder that has my PDFs in it. And they're labeled what we labeled our artboards. So it's really easy to kind of figure out the difference between there. So if I'm working with a client, they need to have a logo. I will send them, SVGs, PDFs, and a PNG, because they might need that PNG for the web. And I'll have these little folders here, and I'll tell them the pros and cons of working with these different file types. Okay. So that kind of completes our first phase of today, part 1. If you want to, take a little breather, but if not, if you're ready to continue on, let's go for it. So part 2, what we're going to go to is the demo template. Okay, so we got our demo template here. I have made a demo template. I said that already, but I've made this template where we have our logo, a space for our logo. That's the first artboard, our letterhead, a front of a business card, a back of the business card, a front of an envelope, and then a back of an envelope. And I made a little flap there just to remind myself what's the front, what's the back. Okay. So what we're going to do first is we're going to go and we're going to bring in our logo. Now, I'll kind of show you the difference between working with these files. If we go File, Place, and I bring in my, let's go into that demo photo. If I bring in my SVG, I'm going to bring in the rough one. And I click here, I've lost my clear space. Okay. So SVG, depending on how it's exported, doesn't usually retain that clear space. If I go and place my PDF, though, you can click and drag. It retains that clear space. But the thing is about the PDF is if I go to try to edit the color, it's just a big block. Okay. So if you know you don't need to do any edits, you can bring that PDF in. Okay. If you're going to do some edits, you're going to have to bring in that SVG. So got that PDF on the first one. I'm not going to change anything. The only thing I want to do is I'm going to go grab my artboard tool and I'm going to go and bring over that artboard a little bit, just so it's around that clear space. So I might use the PDF for just this first one and then be switching gears from there. Okay, so next up what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the letterhead. So the letterhead's going to be the document that is like the official stationery paperwork that all, writings and letters are sent. DSU has its own letterhead for each department. I have to use the letterhead when I have to go send out to other universities for invoices and stuff like that. So it's important to have a nice looking letterhead. We're not going to be making something that looks too fancy today. We're just going to do something that's clean and quick, but we're going to be working on that letterhead. So let's go make sure we're on the right artboard. And what we're going to do is we're going to go grab our guides and grids, pull up those both. And we're going to go create some guides that are 1 inch all the way around. And as I'm starting to do this, I'm starting to realize that I adjusted my first artboard here, and now my guides are a little bit off. This sometimes happens. It's not the end of the world. What I'm going to do is take my artboard tool. I'm going to go and just kind of square up where my next artboard is. This sometimes happens. It's kind of a pain, but it's not the end of the world. You could go over here to this little hamburger, click on that, rearrange the artboards a little bit, but I'm just going to use the artboard tool, kind of square that up just a tiny bit better. So I was noticing that my ruler wasn't lining up correctly. I'm even going to go snap to grids for right now, just to make life easier. So I'm going to go make a margin that is 1 inch on the sides. So we got 1 inch on the sides. And then I'm going to go do a 1/2 inch at the top and a full inch at the bottom. Okay. So we got that going there. A little bit of breathing room at the top, a lot more at the bottom. Maybe this is a little tight at the top, but we're going to roll with it. I'm going to get rid of that snap to grids. So getting rid of snap to grids. And what we're going to do is we're going to work smarter, not harder. I'm going to grab a rectangle and I'm going to put it inside our guides. And then what we're going to do is we're going to, like we've done before, we're going to split that rectangle to figure out what our grid system is going to be like. So object, path, split into grid. So what are we going to be doing? We're going to be splitting our grid. I click preview. We're going to split it into 10 rows and then 6 columns. Ten rows and 6 columns. Should be looking something kind of like this, hopefully. So once we got that going, it's looking a tiny bit off from what I did before, but we're going to roll with it. We're going to hit OK. So we got these different squares going on in here. I'm going to go right click, make guides. We got some guides happening. I'm going to go right click one more time, lock guides for right now, just so they're not moving around. So we're going to use this as our grid system. I'm going to go take my PDF, bring it back in here again. So I'm going to grab the rough one, bring it back in here. I'm going to put him kind of in the first quadrant here. We might go and adjust the size a little bit. So I kind of cook and show this out. This might not be perfect, but we're just going to kind of rough things out just so it's working, it's fitting. So we're going to have up in the first kind of 4 quadrants on the left, our logo. Then we're going to go and we're going to put some type up here on the right-hand side. Maybe I'll just do this really quick so you can kind of visualize it. We'll have some type over here. That's going to be where you're going to put our address. And then we're going to have a big block of type going on down here where we have our letter. And then down here, we're going to have the contact info for whoever sent it. You know, sincerely yours, that person. So you could go and have to, you know, write all this type. What I did was I went into ChatGTP and I asked it to basically make up a fake letter with a fake address, format it like it would be for a letterhead, and then I had it spit it out. And that's what we're going to be using. So if you go over to our copy here, we got all the stuff. So I'm going to go grab the first big block of text, which is the fake mouse skateboarding clothing. It's got this really cheesy address. I'm going to grab all that. I'm going to go set that up top. So I'm going to take that top left corner, make a box there, paste it in there. And let's work with, I'm going to be working with Gotham. Hopefully you got Gotham. So we got Gotham. Maybe we're going to go Gotham Bold. Got kind of a cracked version of Gotham. So if you don't got it, it's not the end of the world. So we're going to have that up at the top, that first quadrant, working like classic kind of grid system going on here, modular grid system. And then after that, let's go adjust my mouse just a little bit. Let's go and grab the next one on the list is the date. So I'm going to go grab type tool, type today's date, which is Jan 6th, 2024, not 2023. I'm going to go put that maybe down over here. Now we can move this all around. You might be wondering why I just am arbitrarily throwing these into places, and it's because I've done this before. But, you know, we have this grid system that we could have different text boxes and move them around. I've been kind of doing this for a few times, so I know where things are going to happen. Next step, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our text. We're going to grab this recipient's name and address. This could be longer, but for the sake of this kind of dummy exercise, we're not going to flush it out. When you go to do your actual project, maybe use like a fake address, but the name of, you know, somebody you're working with, somebody in the classroom. Preferably not me. Maybe a real name there. Or your name, who knows, maybe it's your company. Anyways, we have our address to the person that we're sending it to. And then we're going to grab that big block of text, dear recipient, all the way down to skate on. And then that's going to go over quite a few boxes. So we got this. I'm going to go make that be, try 11 points, 10 points, I guess, is the money. Got that happening. It could be a little bit bigger. I'm going to bump that up just a tiny bit. I know I could make this look a little bit better. Maybe if I had this as justified. So we're getting that kind of situated in there. Sorry, it's taking me a minute. It's acting goofy. And once we got that all together, we're going to move on to the next part. Okay, so I'm kind of going through here. I'm adjusting some of my type a little bit. Some of it was a little bit big, I think. Okay, so 11 points kind of works a little bit better. Looks a little cleaner. This is nothing amazing, but it's getting the job done. Not the greatest, but we can work with it. Okay, do better when you do your actual project. Okay, so we got that going there. And then let's go grab that last little bit of copy left for the cover letter. We're going to put that down in this last kind of area. There we go. Got it kind of roughed out. So that is pretty basic. We could add some more flair to it. We could make some things a little bit bigger. If we spend all day on this, I think I would drive you all crazy. We're just doing stuff to get the job done. Okay, so we got that going. Let's go grab another mouse. This time I'm going to grab the SVG clean. So I went File, Place, SVG clean. I'm going to bring him in. Maybe he's going to go down the bottom corner or so. Make it a little bit bigger. And this time, instead of doing black, maybe I'm going to go and switch it up. So I'm going to go click on this SVG, double click on our fill color, and I'm going to switch it up. You can pick your own color, but I'm going to go, and there's a color I liked. I'm going to go type in 49, so that the hex code. So we got that pound sign or the hashtag sign. And then I'm going to put 49 BD 9A. And that has this kind of green color. I don't know. I was filling it before. I don't know if I'm filling it now, but here we are. And then I'm actually going to trim off the bottom here. I'm going to make another little box. I guess if you had a bleed, you probably wouldn't want to do this, but I'm just going to do it because it's bugging me for right now. I'm going to grab my Pathfinder, chop that. So we got like the little colorful guy kind of going, peeking over the edge there. We can maybe turn it. You can do what you want with it. Maybe I'm going to take this logo, make it that green as well. Oh yeah, I can't. It's a PDF. Right. Okay. Never mind. Onward. So let's go over to our front of our business card. So this time we're going to go and let's place in another SVG. And for the front, I'm going to grab my clean again. It doesn't really matter too much because I'm going to be using just the text. So I'm thinking the front of my business card is going to look something like that. I'm going to have the text there. I got some more copy coming up. So some more information. And then I'm going to need to use a QR code. But let's first get our front kind of situated, looking okay. I'm going to get rid of our mouse. So grab the lasso tool. I kind of direct select lasso. I'm going to go around the mouse, get rid of him. And then we're going to go and figure out how big this needs to be in here. So I'm going to make it a little bit more smaller. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a box. I'm going to figure out my clear space, kind of. I go around that F again. Put one box on one side. One box on the other side. And then I kind of got my clear space on my sides figured out. Looking good. I'm going to actually take this box, take it down to half the size of the E. I'm going to use that for the space up top. So maybe something like that. I'll save that for later. Okay, so we got the front of our business cards. It says fake mouse. Let's go make a QR code. So what we're going to do to make a QR code, you can do that through Adobe, but you actually have to go onto the internet. It's a little weird. So I went to Google. The easiest way to get to it is probably just go Adobe QR code generator. I'm going to go click on that free online QR code generator. I like Adobe's. There's other sites to make QR codes, but they're not as stable. They sometimes will die after time. They become unlinked. Adobe's is pretty good. I haven't had any issues with it. So you might have to sign in. What I'm going to go do is create a QR code. Now our fakemouse.com or whatever it's called that ChatGTP made is not a real website. So I know you're wondering, why is fake mouse not taken yet? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe use DSU's URL if you want to use that. You can use whatever, but I'm going to go drop it in here just because we need some dummy QR code. And then we got a few options here. So I got my URL, that's working. I could pick a style. So heck, let's go with, instead of the really hard edges, our mouse is circular. Let's go with circles. I'm going to go full circle mode on this. Okay, color, I'm going to go with black. File type, we got a couple different formats. We can do a PNG, JPEG, or an SVG. So I'm going to grab an SVG. Let's try this out. So I downloaded that. I'm going to bring this guy in. File, place, somewhere in my messy downloads. Okay, got it. So it's coming in as an SVG, which means that right now it is just paths, right? I need to fill it with something. I'm just going to take the eyedropper tool, click the black of that one label. So holding down Shift, we're going to go scale it down, figure out where it needs to go. So if you notice here that our bounding box goes all the way to this little corner here, because the QR code almost has this like clear space of its own. Kind of bothers me. If you do the SVG, you got that little corner. I'm going to go around that little corner. Select that. Maybe I can make that clear. Yeah, okay, cool. So that won't be an issue there. It's just one of those things. If you download as a PNG or a JPEG, that isn't there, but it is when you're busting out the old SVG. So I'm going to size this down. I'm going to make it, for the sake of time, I'm going to try just making it the size of our F. So I made it the size of the F. I was just kind of cooking and I forgot to tell you what I was doing. Made it the size of the F, and then I moved some guides down because I had taken that X height, half that E, and I'm going to use that as the gap in between that content there. So we got a little QR code there. If you want to make something better, by all means, make something better. I'm kind of whipping this up as we're going. Next, what we need to do is go back to our text, and we need to add your name, your position, and then telephone number, address, that type of content. So I'm going to go make a little text box. Still working in Gotham, but maybe I'm going to stick with light for right now. Take it down to 9. Usually I don't go any lower than 9. Let's try this out. So we got a lot of content here. We probably don't need all of this second. I'm going to go and just do your name, your position, email. Maybe I'm going to bump that up 10. Make it, yeah, I'll keep it 10. So I'm liking how this is looking. I'm going to take another guide. I'm just kind of making a grid off of our text that's already there. And take my QR code and make it the same size as our text. And we could be using the line tools to work a little quicker too. So I got my QR code, I got my text, kind of just double checking how everything's looking here, using that size of that E yet again, just to kind of figure out the spaces in between stuff. That's looking good there. I'll hold on to that guy for a little longer. So we have that there. Maybe let's see what it looks like if I go and justify it. So I'll kind of situate in the type up here, and then we'll move on to the next step. So just bear with me. Set and type. Justified looks like trash, so we'll just keep that left and lined. Okay. Then I'm going to go take that half of that E again. I'm going to make another little space maybe. And let's see if we can put the last of that copy in there. So I don't need fake skateboarding company, all that kind of stuff there, but I do need fake mouse, skateboarding clothing, and the address. So those bottom two lines, I'm going to copy those over. And I'm going to go put it down here in the little bit of space we got left. So Gotham, try that out. Feel like I can fine tune this still a little bit. Let's go switch this to bold. So we're going to be doing some adjustments, trying to get this to look a little cleaner. Feeling like this is doing okay, but it does have some awkward spacing. So take a few minutes, kind of clean this up. I'm going to just kind of quickly adjust some of our spacing here. This is rather trash-like, but it's a business card we made in a couple minutes. So if you want to make this look a little fresher, make that front of the business card look a little fresher. Once we got it going, let's move on to the next. Okay, we're going to call that okay. Not the greatest looking business card, but do better when you do your final project. Let's go to the back of the business card, and I'm going to go drop in. I'm going to go File, Place, and go grab my SVG yet again. I'm going to grab the roughed up one. I'm going to put him in there. So if you want to put the roughed up mouse on the back, you can give it some flair, do what you want with it. I'm going to go quickly, because it's that SVG and I don't have my clear space, quickly go make some clear space with that F again. I'm just got to figure out stuff. So if you want to do what you want to do on that back card, take a few seconds and we'll go from there. So figuring out my clear space for those who are keeping score. So once you got your mouse in there, maybe we'll adjust the colors, make that look a little fresher than what we got. Actually going to take that kind of green color and make a rectangle. Send that behind everything. Cool. Maybe something like that. You can do what you want. And then we're almost there, folks. Moving on to the front envelope. So on our front envelope, we're going to have a space for our stamp. On the top right, top left, we need to have the return address. And then in the center, we need to have the address where it's going to go. So I'm going to grab some of the content that we already have. So we need a fake skateboarding clothing company and that whole address there. You usually need the name of who that came from. So I'm going to put that real quick. So just grabbing our content, bringing in here real quick. And then we need to grab the recipient's name and the recipient's address, or you can make up something if you want to take a few seconds and do that. So we're dumbing it out something like this. Okay. Okay, y'all. So I'm going to go and make some guides. Why don't we take a moment just to kind of go and adjust our design here a little bit. Can we even call it a design? I don't know about that. It's pretty rough, but I'm going here. I'm just in my artboard, scooting it around a little bit, making sure that's lining up with the ruler, making some guides just to make my life a little easier. I'm going to make a spot for my stamp here in a second. So all I'm doing is I'm going to get rid of the fake mouse. I'm just going to have the little logo here. And what I'm going to do, actually I need that F, don't I? For my clear space, grab that F real quick before I get rid of the fake mouse. We're going to make like a little mouse stamp here in just a second. So use that F to make a clear space, or you can make a box, whatever's easiest for you. I'm going to make it look kind of like a little black and white stamp, or maybe a colored stamp of our logo here. So when you go to do your project, you can do what you want with it, but we just need some kind of placeholder for our stamp. Okay. So I'm going and I'm adjusting my stamp. Hopefully you're doing whatever you want to do. Sorry if this is taking a minute today. So I got my little stamp. It's kind of inverted here. And then I'm going to go shrink it down a little bit. So usually stamps go a little bit shy of an inch. So I'm going to go just under an inch. And that should be where the viewer should know where our stamp's going to be at. Maybe I'm going to go make that whole thing a compound path. Oh, can't. Okay. Anyways, onward. And then I'm going to go and make some boxes around our text that we got here. So if you could refine your design for me, that would be great. Just take a few minutes to kind of clean this part up before we move on to kind of the last boss. Or take another break. So I'm just making some white boxes, kind of refining my design a little bit. But yeah, do what you want to do with it. Okay, I think I'm done with the front. It looks kind of basic, but so does this whole project. So what can we say? Okay. Moving on. Let's go down to the last little section here. We're going to talk about something new. So I got this here. It's looking good. We got a little flap action going on. I'm going to make that flap that kind of green. And this time I'm going to make a little pattern. So I'm going to show you guys how to make patterns. It's going to take 2 seconds to do. It's really simple. So if you want to, not if you want to, you're going to, but let's go File, Place, and let's bring in this time the SVG of our clean mouse. We're going to use the cleaner one to make a pattern. So we got our clean mouse here. Let's get rid of that text. So we just have the mouse. And I'm going to shrink it down. So make it whatever size you want that pattern to be. I'm going to make it pretty small. And then we're going to go turn it. So I'm going to hold down Shift. I'm going to turn it to the left a little bit, like a nice little 45. If you do that Shift and turn, then it's going to make a nice, easy kind of 45-degree turn. I'm going to make that the green of the flap. And then to make a pattern, something to definitely write down. It's going to pop up on a quiz. To make a pattern, we're going to go to Object, Pattern, Make. Object, Pattern, Make. That's all we need to do. And if we go and look, we got the start of a pattern going here. I'm going to go and show you how to kind of work in this. We have this box that's around our shape. We could do this with multiple shapes. We could have 10 shapes and make a pattern out of it. But for right now, we're just doing the one. I'm going to go and I'm going to give it a name. Call it mouse pattern 1. I don't know. Okay. We can have different configurations. So right now I'm going to set simple grid. I could do rows. I could do columns. They're all looking pretty similar until I click them. Maybe I want to go do brick columns. And then we can go pick the width, which is going to be this bounding box outside of it. So maybe I'll do something like that. Down towards the bottom, there's other things like overlays if you had stuff you wanted to overlay. But that's looking pretty good right there. I'm going to adjust my copies. Get some more, I guess. And then once you got that going, just hit done. And it's going to save over in our swatches over here. I'm going to move that guy. I'm going to go make a nice big box over everything. And I'm going to change the fill to that pattern in our swatches. Cool. Not perfect, but we can work with that. Let's send that to the back. Okay, so we got our logo, we got our cover letter, front and back of our business cards, front and back of our envelope here. Let's do this. Let's go, and we're going to do one more envelope thing for the next part. I'm going to make one additional one. I'm going to say this one's envelope, no flap. Just because we're going to make some digital mock-ups, and I know that's going to be kind of a pain. And I'm just going to copy that over there. And once we do that, let's do this. Let's go and save it as an Illustrator file if you hadn't already. And we're going to talk about exporting one more different way. Okay, so what we're going to do for this export is basically the same thing, but this time we're going to go File, Export, and let's go to Export As. And this time we're going to just export a series of JPEGs. We're going to go use artboards, and we're actually going to go through and do 1 through 7. We're going to go range 1 through 7. And I'm going to hit export. It's going to ask us how we want to export this JPEG. If you go through the screens, it's just going to export it at the whatever quality is the auto quality. But I'm going to keep it at CMYK. I'm going to go all the way up to maximum 10, 300 resolution at least, and hit OK. So it's going to take a sec. It's going to export that out. I'm going to go in my folder here, and I got, not in its own folder, I'll make a little JPEG folder, but we have all of our stuff. So there it is, hopefully looking pretty good. What we're going to do now is we're going to make a digital mockup. So digital mockups are a way of kind of showing that off to clients, kind of posting your designs on the internet. You could take a photo of everything. Yeah, you could do that, but it's going to look a lot cleaner to probably just do a digital mockup. Now you can find some of these mockups online. We're going to use one that is a template in Photoshop. That's why we needed the individual JPEGs. You can also make them in Illustrator. If you're going to do Illustrator, I'd write this down. It's probably just going to look cleaner if you just use PDFs. But it's kind of up to you, your flavor. I'm going to show a couple different ways. We're going to go through 3. We'll get to that wine bottle here in a minute. But let's start off with working in Illustrator. Okay. I'm just saving up real quick. Okay, we need to make a new document. So let's go File, New. And I'm going to make this document 24 wide by 18. Because we're going to make this digital mockup. We're going to print it out down the road, not this one, when you make your own, better looking logos and stationery. You're going to make this mockup, print it out. We're going to put it onto foam board, and you'll be able to go, mount it and put it in an exhibition for the student show, or apply at least. Hopefully it gets in. Okay, so we got our board here. Maybe I wanted to go and give it a little bleed. We could do that, working at CMYK, 300 PPI, all that kind of basic stuff. Got a bleed there. And then we're going to go and we're going to go place in all those JPEGs. So, like I said before, you could go place in PDFs. I would recommend to use a PDF if you're going to work in Illustrator, but I saved them as JPEGs just so it'd be easier working in Photoshop. And that'll make sense here in 1 second. The PDFs don't really work as well for what we're going to do in Photoshop. So I'm going to get rid of the envelope back that didn't have a flap. And then I'm going to just work with this. Okay, so we got this different content. We're going to figure out a way of kind of aesthetically putting it in here so it looks nice. I'm going to go and make a background layer, and that's just going to be like our background color. Maybe that background color is going to be like a diluted or grayed out green, maybe. Trying to figure out something that looks kind of nice. Yeah, we're going to go something like this, but okay, so we got this content in here. We're figuring out the kind of lay of the land. Don't like that gray, but we'll work with it for now. I'm going to lock that down. So then we got this other content, and we're going to make it look like there's some definition here. We can adjust those background colors later. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go put a drop shadow on these different objects. So I'm going to go select them. I'm going to go to Effect. Now this is a little confusing. There's a couple different stylized, but we're going to go to that top one. We're going to go to Drop Shadow. It's going to take a second, and we can see the drop shadow pops up. It gives a little shadow to stuff. We can play around with that overlay. Do we want it to be normal? Do we want it to be multiply? I'll go with normal for right now. We can adjust. You can play around this with your own, but I kind of like to do this to all of them at the same time. You can adjust the direction, how far they're going to be. We want it to be probably pretty close. We don't want these to look kind of weird, like they're floating off the page a whole lot. I'm going to make a shadow that's on the left-hand bottom side. I got about 1/8 of an inch. Maybe a little bit more. You can change the color. You could even do some versions of this. You can do a gradient. You can get kind of tricky with it, but I'm going to leave that kind of a black. So now we're going to go and kind of try to figure out a way of maneuvering these around to kind of make it look more interesting. So we're going to take a couple minutes to try and make it look a little bit more aesthetic, and then we're going to play around with those drop shadows a little bit more. So we're kind of just playing around with our design a little bit, trying to make something that feels a little bit more interesting. we'll move on from there. So we can make a grid. We could figure this out. We could make it look a little bit more fine-tuned than this, but I'm going with something like this for right now. Yeah, why not? I could waste all day doing this. Okay, so this looks okay. It still looks a little fake. I'm going to adjust my background a little bit because I don't like that just flat gray. Maybe I will go make it a little greener. I'm going to go give it a slight gradient. I'm going to do one of these freeform gradients to it. So maybe do a freeform gradient, kind of play around with some of the colors that we got going on. So we're playing around with that freeform gradient. I keep on messing mine up, as you can see. We're kind of adjusting that. Getting something that looks now I feel a bit more happier about, and then moving on from there. Okay. So we got the gradient going here. Still, some of this content seems a little weird. It seems like it's floating and it's not creating the most accurate shadows. So we can go and still build in some shadows. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go grab the pen tool and I'm going to go make a shadow. Just like a shadow shape. Because I want this envelope to be floating and creating just a little bit more shadow than what it's doing right now. So we got a little shadow shape like that. And what I'm going to do now with that shadow shape is I'm going to go blur it. So I'm going to select the black shape that I just made with the pen tool. And I'm going to go to effects again. And then I'm going to go down to blur. I want to pick that first blur, the Gaussian blur. And I'm going to go kind of crank that guy around, try to get it to look a little bit more accurate. I'm going to hit OK. And then I'm going to go grab my direct select, grab my anchor points. I'm going to adjust that blur just a tiny bit. So that's got a little bit more blur because it's like on top of the paper, but it's behind the other thing. And maybe I'm going to take that same shape. I'm going to go put it also behind our big logo over here. So I'm going to go copy that over. Then I'm just going to go just that blur shape that I made. So I'm just using the direct select, just kind of adjusting our shadow shape. Okay, so we've adjusted some of the shadows. We got what looks like a pretty basic looking digital mockup, but that's one way of going about it. So I could go and save this as a PDF. I could print it out, I could mount it, or I could go send it to a client and be like, hey, look, here's a digital mockup. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. That's option 1. Okay, so we got a few other options. I'm going to get rid of this for a second. There's another feature within Adobe Illustrator for making mockups. I'm going to go and let's go grab an SVG. I'm going to grab the rough mouse. I'm going to open that up inside Illustrator. So there's a couple different ways of doing this. And there's a really new beta that's out for doing this. I'm just adjusting my colors just a tiny bit because they bug me. Okay, so I got my logo here, and Illustrator's trying to be more and more like Photoshop, and there's a new beta for doing this. You might not have this on your version of Illustrator. I've kind of tried to keep up to date with some of the new tools in Illustrator. But if you go, select your logo, and go to Object, Mockup Beta, and click Make. If you have already installed it, it works. If not, you might have to install it. But what you can do is you can go find mockups, and you can mock the thing up. And just kind of like auto-generate your logo on stuff. So it's like a really quick way of, you could put a logo, you could make some other designs for screens, and have this digital mockup pretty quick and easy. So mine's generating right now. So we got this on the screen. You know, we could go get that, buy the Adobe stock and go from there. So that's one way of doing it. Let's get a little bit fancier. I'm going to go grab this bottle that you've seen a couple times when I've been switching screens. I'm going to go copy this from the internet, go back into Illustrator, paste this in. Maybe I want to shrink it down a little bit, just a little. So how this mockup works also is we can bring in content and we can have AI kind of do it for us. So I'm going to bring this bottle, I'm going to kind of shrink it down. I'm going to make my logo. I'm going to roughly place it on the bottle. It's looking kind of fake right now. But then if I go and grab everything and I go back to Object, Mockup, Make, it's going to take a few minutes. It's going to scan the image. It's going to figure out kind of roughly the perspective of that image. And then it's going to go and wrap our logo onto that bottle. Now this is very subtle at first, but I can go and you can see how it's wrapped around that label there. You know, it does some weirder things, like it's going to want to go try to wrap around the neck. But this is a really easy way to kind of bring in an image, you know, maybe bring in a stock photo, as long as it's royalty free or where you're not going to get in trouble. And you can go show how that logo is going to look on an object. Okay, so that's option 2. Okay, so let's not save that. If you didn't have that downloaded, I'm sorry, but that is an option. You know, if you're on a personal computer, download it. It's a really simple way of kind of working. But let's go do this. Let's go back to our demo folder. We're almost there, folks. And we have a whole bunch of mockups. There's the MD231. I went and got some free mockups. If you do buy a mockup online, or if you get a free one, there's going to be a license in there. And it's going to tell you in that license the terms and conditions. Okay. So this one is basically pretty straightforward. If I remember correctly, it's been a minute since I've read it, but it's that you can use it, but the only thing you really can't do is change the mockups and say they're yours. So if you wanted to use it for, you know, making something and showing off to a client, you can, but you can't sell the mockup, basically. Other ones, you have to, you know, maybe pay them, give them rights, things like that. So definitely check that out. Make sure you're not going to get in trouble. But we have several different mockups here. We can see we got these different angles. They're JPEGs. But I'm going to go use the simplest one, I guess. I'm going to go use mockup number 2. So let's go to that Photoshop mockup number 2. Double click on that. So we got a mockup. We have essentially these different smart objects. And what a smart object is, it's an object that if we go and we click on, it will open up a new file, and we can edit that and save it, and then it'll replace the file on this mockup. That'll make more sense here in 1 second. Let me go grab the letterhead. Now I'm going to grab the letterhead. So I'm going to go click on our little icon. So I went and double clicked on the letterhead. Pops open this PSB file. We talked about that in the lecture. And I'm going to go File, Place Embed. I'm going to go grab my letterhead. That's a JPEG. So I went and placed it in there. I hit OK. I'm going to go save that. So I updated that PSB file, and I go back and bam, it's replaced it. So you see this a lot of times, like there's like a poster on a wall. Sometimes there's people with shirts and they have a t-shirt design. It's completely blanked. They basically made a 3D kind of perspective map, and they had that PSB file get warped on it. Seems really complicated, but it's not that hard. You could make some of these. You just take a little time. So I'm just going to go through here real quick. And I'm going to go. I'm just going to grab that color really quick, the hex code. But I'm going to go through these things and just kind of swap them out. So I grabbed my kind of green that I had from before, or that kind of teal looking color. I'm going to go click on the flap color. I'm going to go make that flap color that green, hit save. The flap is now green. Now you can probably see why I made a version of the envelope that did not have a flap. So I'm going to go click on That envelope, I'm going to go place. The flapless version needs to be a little bit bigger. Not the end of the world. So kind of size that up. Some of these you got to kind of scoot around to get them feeling right. So save that up. We replaced it there. What's called the flyer is really just the front of our envelope. So we're going to save that one up. It was a little bit, maybe a little bit bigger, so I went and kind of painted in some things there. And then we're going to quickly go swap out the business cards. So I'll just file place, drop it in. Save it and place it. And file place. Place it and save it. So we got that there. We could go take a color replacement brush, change that blue to a green. I think even the clips, we can go click on the clips. Change out the color of the clips. So there we go. So once you get this going, maybe try to attempt, this isn't the greatest mock-up, but it's a freebie. Maybe you can go and try to click on that pin and adjust the color of that pin a little bit. Or find it down here in the mix. There we go. You might kind of go and change up that color with the color replacement brush as best you can. I'm just kind of retouching up that color. So there you have it. In this demo, we made a logo. We combined some paths, we created clear space, we exported it out in several different ways. We then took that content, we made some really gross looking stationery. Hopefully gets the idea across, but we made stationery. Okay, we have all that content. We did the entirety of the project in about an hour or two. We exported that out, and then we made a digital mock-up. So there's different ways of making digital mock-ups. We have this type in Photoshop, but you could also make stuff within Illustrator. I would really recommend for the student show, if you're going to go, for this finalized project, and we're going to go print stuff off, that you make your own mock-up in Illustrator from scratch. I think that'll look a lot cleaner, but this is another option out there too. Okay, folks. So this has been a lot, but hopefully it all made sense. Let's save this guy as just a simple JPEG file, save copy, save it as a JPEG, and then you can save this JPEG, upload it, and you're done with the first demo. Sorry, it was a long one, but there was a lot of important stuff we had to cover. Okay, see y'all later.